said you were gonna resign from this committee. You didn't say you were gonna resign from the community. I came out here just for you. If wherever you're going, I'm going.
Well, you
And
can't
long,
get
long,
1940
long,
something.
long,
First
and you know
Street.
what? I've seen this happen before. I've seen this happen before. The lady that was doing the program in Mississippi, they did the same thing. It ain't nothing new. And when I was in Mississippi, when I came back here, felt like I stepped back into 50 years of yesterday. That's what's happening here. So my thing over here, you should take all your information with you.
You don't have to worry about hearing nobody put it together.
Man, I'm gone.
That's not a good question.
But we got to stay the rest of
No, it's over. It's
Let's
over.
go.
It's over.
I wouldn't come.
Okay.
You know, we,
Thank you, LAVON. Thank you, LAVON.
LAVON is very dedicated to solving issues with young people. And that's the thing that caused us to have such a bond, is because her wanting to address what she saw as shortcomings for what young people were going through. And when she put together her triage program, that was in the spirit of addressing youth. And it was her that came up with the idea of actually meeting some of the youth at the youth center and getting them involved with programming in a way that it was consistent with what they were receiving at the youth center. So she's really done a lot. And also, in response to your comment to Patrick, you know, what have we done? You know, as a committee over the past few years, we've actually done a lot with what we've got. And the opportunity certainly is to make sure that we're communicating across systems and getting the kind of information to understand what the flow of minorities are going into the system. Yes. And holding folks accountable for what could be a potential solution to address what's the disproportionality in going through that system point. And the opportunity is recognizing that, you know, we're really talking about the same children for the most part. Some peel off here, maybe at the jack, some peel off here, maybe with probation, some peel off here to an alternative. But ultimately, they're all children within the system. And what we've got to be able to do is to address at every opportunity and ask the question, you know, how did this youth get here? Is there a way that we can serve that child without some of the rails that are in place that follow the same path, and how we can think differently about what the needs are for children that are getting into the system. And ultimately, you know, young people are still getting into the system at a high rate, and the truth of the matter is, systems have to work together in order to address all of those issues. And work plan review. Work plan review. The update is I was putting together our work plan for 2020, and we are. I have to work with Al Jamal, and we're coming up with one work plan together. So where we are currently is Al Jamal and I will be getting together, and we'll be putting together our DMC, our RED work plan.
I have a question about that.
Well, I have a couple questions about that. So you won't have one for tomorrow night that's due for the co-chairs. I don't understand why you guys would have the same work plans, and then I have something that I wanted to update about my work plan that will impact yours. So you won't have one for tomorrow night?
That was the email I sent you.
I must not have got that. I haven't gotten those in a long time. So I need you to
goodness.
send me another
Maybe.
one so
Yeah.
that I can give it to Thomas and Judge. Why would you guys have the same work plan? They should
That
be
was a
separate.
direction,
From,
Patrick.
okay. And then finally, Ajamal and I attended a conference last week, JDAI conference, and this is something that I've wanted to do for years that I think we're finally going to put on a work plan for next year, and just to inform this committee that it would not be done without collaboration here, but we would like to do a RED conference, a regional conference next September in Douglas County, bringing national speakers and then having local people who could do workshops and stuff. But just to inform this group, that's something Ajmal and I want to work towards, and this group would be a part of it. I'm telling you, because I have to submit a work plan tomorrow, and if it's not on there, it's not something that we can work on. So I'm gonna put it on the JDI work plan. We'll start with meeting with Project Harmony, because they're the only ones I know who have a conference this big, to get an idea of what task force they have for when they do this conference, kind of an idea of cost, how they go about selecting workshops and stuff, and then we'll have a timeline that hopefully we can bring back here in January, because we will definitely need everyone's help to make this happen and to have the breakout sessions that we'll need so that we can inform people here. And then invite people from Kansas and Iowa and Wyoming and Colorado. The only RED conference we know of is in Baltimore, and everyone can't go to that. So we'd like Douglas County hopefully to be a place in the future that people look to for RED information. And so we'd like to start a conference here that we could do yearly. So that's just to let you know that'll be on our work plan, and this committee is definitely to be collaborated with for that.
So is that a work plan with you and Jamal? Or
It's
is that
on my
the
JDI work plan.
JD?
I'm sure he'll have it on his work plan. And then if you choose, it would go on yours too as something, because your
Well,
work plan
if-
should only be like your top 3 things you want to accomplish in the next year.
Well, if that's gonna be something like that, it's
It'd be
definitely.
separate from my reg ones. Because I do a work plan that's kind of what things JDI coordinator does, and then I pick 2 from each committee of what initiatives that these 2 things get done in the next year would move a committee forward. So I'll still pick 2, and this will be a separate one also.
Where's the funding for this coming from?
Hopefully from money is already received from Title II, and we don't know. We're gonna talk to Project Harmony, and people would be charged like any other conference.
Okay.
That's as
Why
far
are you
as we got.
partnering with Project Harmony instead of like?
I'm not
improvement
partnering with
project or
them, but they're
something?
the only ones I know who's thrown something this big in Douglas County, so I wanna just know what subcommittees do they have. I'm sure they have a decorating committee and a food committee and a work plan group committee and a keynote committee. I wanna know what those committees are, so we don't have to start from 0. We can at least get an idea and be halfway up the ladder when we start.
Yeah, and I think, I think the concept is good. I just don't wanna be on the outside in. We gotta make sure that we're on the table going forward. With regards, Georgetown, Elijah.
I had asked Shelley a question. With the exception of Mays, Shelley, can you tell me, can you give me 3 organizations, preferably that are operated by blacks within the traditional North Omaha black community, that you think should be involved in the upcoming direction of this group?
Yes, I would say Center for Holistic Healing for sure. I think that their knowledge on trauma and how it impacts our kids and what kids would need to be able to get through that, to get through what the juvenile justice system is asking them to do would be important. I think U-turn is important to something like this because of what that Darkness to Light program that they do and other information education they have on our higher risk kids. And then I think of one that haven't heard of in a long time. I don't do direct service anymore, so I'm not connecting families to services, but I am continually amazed at how Fathers for a Lifetime are not at our tables. We have a whole set of parents that a lot of times are just ignored on. Every time I'm asked to staff a case, I say, who's dad? People will say, well, there is no dad. Well, there is a dad, so we're clear the way it works is we all get one of each of those, right? And so bringing them in to teach us how it is we engage fathers, even if they're incarcerated, are willing to support their children. And we just kind of have to be the people who get over our problems with that, start reaching out to these dads and bringing them back to their kids.
Okay,
So
thank
those
you.
would be my 3 off the top of my head, but it doesn't mean there's not a bunch more. But right off the top of my head, it might be.
You can email me one if you want to do that, because that's important, that level of operation from here on out be communicable with this group.
Absolutely.
And they have
All right.
been at this table before, some of those
Yeah,
groups.
and there's tons more. That's just top of my head.
Yeah, well, there's reasons why that's why I want to find out which ones now, because that's the only ones that need to be involved in this, is those who have hands-on in the community as it applies to individuals who have own personal concerns about their problems.
Right, and Mays, just to make sure everybody understands.
Well, we know
and
they go
you
through
guys
that.
know this about me already, about you, but my very favorite thing about Mays as a program is the fact that these guys spend a good amount of time in a year honing their skills and going to places that aren't Douglas County to find out what's happening in other jurisdictions. And I've said this many times, there are a lot of providers, there are a lot of county attorneys, public defenders, caseworkers, probation officers, JDI coordinators, that if you were my doctor, I would fire. Because they're not getting new information and they think there's only one way to do things. And I think Mays, of all community programs that I know of, which is not all of them, does an amazing job at getting outside of themselves to hear things from other people. Because if we're only talking to each other, we're never going to move.
Yeah, thank you.
Just correction, Dustin Dawn is Terrence Mackey and Beto Gonzalez.
Okay.
They run that.
It's not under-
U-turn is just kind of the voice to get it out there.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
thought they-
I want to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, no
Are
problem.
they affiliated?
Who?
Yeah, it's
Beto-
Just the Dawn and
That-
U-turn?
Yes, they
It's a
have
partnership with
affiliated.
CHI.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Yes, they're
Just from a
They're-
informative, get it out there
Okay,
kind
all
of
right.
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have a touch point.
All right.
With regards to the Georgetown Capstone Project, we're gathering more data and looking to figure out what's going to be the best pathway to address those status offenders getting into the system. We've already reached out to probation, but we're going to have to, we're looking to figure out what's going to be the best tool to do that. And we're going to continue working and going in that direction.
And we have all the data. The data is all currently stuck on my desk. My hope is that in 2 weeks, I will have a break for a couple weeks that I will be able to get that done and turned over to Ryan Spawn at UNO to do his part. But that's where it is. The data's on my desk.
Any update with JDI?
Gosh, we have our work plans due tomorrow night is our fall annual co-chairs meeting. A lot of really cool stuff is coming in our work plans. I could not be more thrilled to have our addition this year of a public defender and county attorney to chair our case processing committees. They have a lot of really progressive ideas and I think surprising each other a lot because it is a great place to be when you have a county attorney talking about pre-arrest diversion and how we can get a program like that started. We have nothing like that in Douglas County and it's everywhere else. We have to make that happen in 2020. We have to truly prevent kids from coming in at all and getting their names in a computer anywhere. So I'm excited that we have those people behind us on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Shelley. I'm going to zip through this. This is just a draft. At the last meeting, we wanted to provide some special education data, but we brought Reagan instead, and he brought the expediting information. And this is just a special, and this is a draft. Once we get everything finalized, I'll share this information. We have things broken down in a couple of ways. This is just our special education information, who comes in each month. And for the month of September, we had 8 youth that came in, and 1 from a reservation. School districts year to date. This is youth that come in for special education by school district. And of course, we see OPS as the largest contributor. Of course, 83% of our population at the youth center comes from OPS. And you see the other, Ralston and Millard and the other ones with 1. Last placement attended. Now, some of our youth are actually coming from placements, not necessarily schools. And in many cases, these are youth who are either doing a violation of a court order or unlawful absence. So we also get individuals that come from placements. Last school attended year to date, we see that most of our youth are in fact coming from high schools. And then our alternative programs.
Yeah,
and,
that's very good.
and then our middle schools. So we're seeing individuals, primarily special education, coming from our high schools. Last year, placement attended year to date, where special education students were sent. The majority of our special education students were sent to Boys Town. Then, of course, we had 3 at Canyon State, 3 at Omaha Home for Boys, and the other ones that's listed. School years attended year to date. This represents where the students with special education came from. So our alternative placements, we see Blackburn is number 1. Middle schools, I was surprised it was Monroe. I thought it might be Nathan Hale, but I was clearly mistaken. And then Benson, And I believe last year it was Northwest, but we'll bring you up to date with the 2018 numbers. Placement year-to-dates for those other districts, and we see the Millard South District is really the leader with regards to that. And this fluctuates from year to year, but it's the fact we serve 8 different districts in detention. And the question is, why is about 20% of our population youth in special education? And there's other questions. The current charges, these were the charges that each of those 8 individuals came in on, and it's kind of unique that each one came in on a different charge, kind of equal opportunity. Current primary charges, and with regards to the unlawful absence is at the 24%, violation of probation is at the 29%, violation of the home program is at the 7%, robbery is at 17%. So we see that for all intents and purposes, nearly half of our youth on special education is getting into detention as a result of a violation of probation. So the question is, how can we get out in front of what some of those issues are? With regards to the number of youth that have recidivated, that came in, of the 5 that came in, of the 8, 5 recidivated that had been at the youth center before. And most of the recidivism that we see is within 60 days of when the youth was primarily in the facility.
Does recidivism mean a new charge, or they simply return to the youth center for possibly an unlawful absence warrant but no new charges?
Yes, anyone that returns to the youth center will be recognized.
So
And
if
as
they
I
don't
mentioned
necessarily
before,
have a new charge or increasing charges, they might have run away more than once and returned.
yes, and interestingly enough, we had one of those sad runaways that were at the youth center for 106 days as a violation of a court order, and that's on probation. And then the youth went on home program, on electronic monitoring. So the question is, why is the
So
youth?
they could have been on probation because they can't have a home program if they're on probation. That's only for pre-adjudicated kids.
Well,
You can't have a home program unless you're
My other
pre-adjudicated.
question would be what
First, Carla.
Oh, sorry. And this may come later, so if I'm jumping ahead, I apologize. Do you have the reasons why there's special education? Because that could be behavioral, it could be because of hearing impaired, or, something like that, which I think would be important to know.
Sure, it could be.
And I didn't
yeah.
know if you have a slide.
No, I don't have a slide for that.
And
but
also,
we
what
do
age
have
were
the
they,
information.
diagnosed as maybe in special education? What grade were they first diagnosed as?
I have no idea.
I mean,
I just know,
I think that's an
know,
important thing.
I just know how they're coming
Well,
to us.
and those numbers are disproportionate too, and I'm sure everybody knows that because we make up 25% of OPS, but we make up 53% of special education. So all that is tied into everything that we're talking about: the suspension rates, the special education, to the incarceration.
That's correct. And same way with regards to males as well. And like I
Yeah.
said, this data, this is actually 1 during the month, not 13. But we're still seeing a high number of males that are coming in each month. And through September, we've had 119 youth that have come through, and that's about 24% of the population. And those by age, when they come in, next month or next time we present, we'll have a breakdown that gives a better idea by age. Here's our individuals by race, but this slide is probably more in line. Why is so many African Americans ending up going
That's not
through?
year-to-date. Or is
Yeah,
that
this is
percentage?
year-to-date.
Is that a
For special
percentage?
education.
No, those are the actual numbers.
Oh,
But
just
of
a
the special
specialist, so
education.
Of the special
135
education.
in special education. Okay.
And I was just gonna say, just to address this point, because that's a very good, when we first talked about, arrest and disproportionality, I know we moved to disparity, but when we talked about disproportionality, we were looking at what's the base of population, what's the base of arrest. that leads to, part of it leads to detention. So, I mean, this was last year's 2017 data?
No, this is current data.
Oh, it's current
This
data,
is
okay.
through this year.
I was gonna say, I mean, the civil rights data collection does a good job of putting out stats that really drill down to, even within the individual schools in our community, what is the breakdown population. So, like you said, if 50%, and we know this, if 50% of, if they're already represented in one system point, that would naturally just regress. So if 50% of the African-American males in OPS are in special education, let's say, just for the sake of argument, I don't know what the number is, then you'd expect to see that replicated at detention. So unless you're seeing more than the proportion you expect to see, this in and of itself doesn't necessarily prove to be a driver, it's just an indication of what we're seeing in the community. So
Right, this is what we're
that's
seeing.
why,
in
I'm saying,
the-
that's why I think we need to compare it to see whether this in fact is a driver of anything or just an indication of what we are already seeing in every other system point. That's just my own point for
I'd say
context.
driver. I mean, my son, he has an IEP, but he's a kindest kid, but he feels embarrassed in class to ask for the extra help, even though he's afforded the extra help. So he's not gonna act out, but I see a lot of kids who act out because they don't want others to know that they're, in special ed and things like that, so.
Well, and this is the last slide, and sorry for going over again.
I think we all
Our-
bear some responsibility for that.
That's quite all right. The number of by month, the number of days that we're seeing individuals with special education, we're just over 51 days for special education need. And I tell you, and that's actually higher than where we currently are, because we're currently at 43 days. So
Can you take that chart and do it versus kids that aren't special ed, you know what I mean?
as far as length of stay,
Yeah.
yeah, I can pull out the special education numbers and show. And like I say, that's about 20% of our population, so consequently, it will lower our overall population, especially in probation. It will. Okay, and like I say, this is just our first draft. I won't be sending this out until we make sure that all of the numbers are reflective of what they need to say. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. Tell your friends about us and bring somebody next time. Thank you.